Good morning, all, or happy lunchtime for my friends in South Downs and others of you living in the future. And welcome to Kal-bardr's Corner for this episode of Coffee with Kal. I am Baron Kal-bardr Gellir, Companion of the Meridian Cross, Companion of the Argent Comet, Companion of the Compostela, Companion of the Palmer's Lantern, and Reaper, coming to you live from the Barony of the Osprey on the southern coast of Meridies. Now, for today's episode, joining me from the cold reaches of North Shield, a herald, a fighter, and a member of the Order of the Pelican, Wu Yun, a.k.a. Emily Lestrange. Good morning, my friend. How are you?
Good morning, Cal. How are you?
I can't complain. Honestly, it is significantly warmer here than it is where you are currently, and I both appreciate that and hate it, so, you know.
Yeah, I guess you probably do.
So, if you will, tell us a little bit who you are and why you are amazing.
I don't know. No pressure, Cal. No
That's right. Just set the bar for you.
Hi, everybody. Most of you know me as Wu. Recently, I registered an English tutor name so that I had something to walk around with when I wasn't obviously wearing Chinese garb because appropriation is a thing. I intentionally registered a name that sounded like my modern name so it would be easier for people to remember. And Emily, even though it's spelled a little strange, it's just pronounced like my modern name. It's just Emily. So if you yell for one of them, you're going to get me. Which growing up, I was the only Emily, so it makes it a little easier. I don't know if amazing is a word that I would use for me, but I've done some stuff and I've seen some stuff. So, like I said, I'm Harold. I started out as a fighter. I hit the field day one as a fighter and came to heraldry later. And then eventually was elevated, I guess, for my heraldic service. That would probably be the thing that got me elevated. But probably what we'll talk about more as the sunk cost support topic goes on is the nuts and bolts of what actually led to me getting elevated, because it's relevant. But yeah, so thanks for having me. I appreciate it, and hope we have a lot of fun.
Of course, I always, I like finding people for these topics that are passionate about a thing, and so when I see something like your sunk cost support, I was like, there you go. There's clearly a passion we need to have a chat about. So I'm looking forward to getting into that. But before we do, of course, today's show is coffee themed, and that's the most important part. So let's talk about our beans. So for today's coffee, since in Mobile yesterday starts Mardi Gras season, I reached for a bag of the Mardi Gras king cake, only to discover it was empty, and I was very, very sad this morning. So I had to opt for the pecan praline, which at least keeps me in the flavors of Mobile category. And of course, out of my Feed the Ravens mug for my Westie Besties. Thanks, guys. So, what about you? What you drinking on this morning?
Well, no beans because China. We're doing leaves right now.
Okay.
And just a bag of constant comment tea with some no calorie sweetener out of my Bad Dragon mug for those of you that get the joke. So
it's not the most offensive mug we've had on the show, so we're good. You're still
I can't
good.
imagine that it would be the most offensive mug that you've ever had, but for those of you that get the joke,
just gonna throw that up there. Yeah, no. When Helga popped on with her literal dick handle mug, and I was like, well, there you go. We've had a dick on screen now. We're good.
I can't imagine Sir Danger Muppet doing anything less. So.
Yep, that's true. So, all right. For those watching, let us know who you are, where you're from in the comments. Let us know you're out there. I can see you're watching, but I don't know who you are till you say something. And if you have any questions while we're going,
I'm on.
There you go. He loves him some Woo. If you have any questions while we're going, please drop them out there in the comments, and we will address them as we have time and it is important or relevant to the conversation. So, but on that, let's get into that. So, the sunk cost, right? So the idea of a thing you've put a ton of time into, that especially during this pandemic, a lot of us have seen a different side of the SCA, or we sort of expand this into whatever hobby you're in. For us, it's relevant to the SCA, and people start questioning their participation in an organization, either because of the people or because of the organization. And it's tough. Like, I get it. Like, I just came back after a 10-year break, so I understand the fuck this shit, I'm out mentality. Right. So for what is this for you? How did this start? Sort of, give us some background on it.
So for me, this has been a very long road. And as I've been sitting working on the content for this, I realized that this has been well over a decade in the making. And the inspiration began with a conversation that I had with a person here in North Shield after I'd moved here. For those of you playing that at home and have realized that my accent pegs me as not part of the Midwest, I started in Meridia's. I lived there for a very long time and moved to North Shield to, contrary to rumor, seek a job opportunity. A lot of people
hold on. What was the rumor? I missed that.
You would
Later.
I've heard so many stories.
Okay.
But we'll definitely get to that because it all has bearing. So I moved to North Shield because I had lost my job and didn't have any other prospects. I was in the middle of a divorce. I don't have any children of my own. Wasn't close with my modern family, and I had opportunities to move here. So that's how I ended up here. I did end up finding the best job I've ever had in my life. I love my job. I'm in media distribution, which is why I don't talk an awful lot about the movies and shows that people are seeing because it can affect my job. So, so yeah. But the sunk cost support concept is actually many, many, many years in the making. But the inspiration came from a conversation that I had with a person here in North Shield who had only been playing for about 5 years at that point. And we were doing a 20 questions, ask me anything back and forth kind of game. And they said to me, what was the first time you thought about leaving? Or they said, have you ever thought about leaving the SCA? And I said, which time? And they said, oh, there it is. Because as a lot of us that have been playing for a long time, and I see some people who've been playing for a really long time in the comments, an SCA generation tends to be between 3 and 5 years.
Correct.
Usually around the time somebody gets their AOA is when they start to go, now what do I do? And the person I was talking to had reached that 5-year point, had gotten their AOA, and they're like, well, now what do I do? And the first time I thought about leaving the SCA was in 2006 when I was put on hiatus from my original household, which was Clan Dragonshade. I was a mercenary household. I've been a mercenary since the day I stepped on the field. And I'm going to say a lot, and I apologize to your listeners.
Okay.
So I was put on a hiatus. I was told that the reasons aren't important. They're irrelevant and didn't actually have any basis in reality. I was told that I could still do SCA activity, but I wouldn't be doing it with the household. And at the time I was married to the chief of the household. So you're telling me I can't go to fighter practice and sit with y'all. I can't go to events and camp with y'all. I can still go, but I can't be associated with y'all anymore. And I really thought about leaving at that point. And I'd been playing for about 6 years at that point.
That's just problematic in general. Like that would be hard to do. Yeah.
Yeah. And imagine listening to my husband at the time kick me out. Like that was great trauma to have to experience in my SCA. So, so I realized that was the beginning because I had tried to find people to have these conversations with of I'm thinking about leaving. I don't know if this game is for me. And every single person I talked to, the conversation turned into, you should stay against all good for you. And here's all the reasons why. And it ranged from, well, if you leave, you're a wuss to if you leave, I'll miss you. And every single conversation I had was some flavor of emotionally manipulative.
Right. And
there was nobody to validate my feelings of wanting to leave. So, pro tip for your viewers who are not yet peers, I hate to break this to you, but 75% of the time that I've spent as a peer has just been thinking about what I needed to hear before I had been elevated and just giving that to people as something that they need to hear. Because if I needed to hear it at 19, 23, 27, 35, then somebody else needed to hear it. So.
Literally yesterday, actually.
Yeah. Literally yesterday. So that's where it came from. And then we got there was one of the baronies over in Midrealm was doing an event after the first year of COVID that it was a virtual event that was focused on getting people back to doing SCA participation. And I said to myself, this is my chance. I'm going to do a talk on, but what if I want to leave? And the term sunk cost is actually an economic philosophy, and it boils down to don't throw good money after bad. Just because you've spent a lot of time, money, and effort on something doesn't mean that you have to continue that investment.
Right.
And turns out lots of people needed to hear that. So from that original talk, it turned into I had done a questionnaire that was like, does anybody want to have more people to talk to about this? And the vast majority of people said yes. So I started a Facebook group. There's the group on Facebook called Sunk Cost Support, just like it sounds, just like the title of the show. And it's a small group, but we use it mostly to keep coordinated, like the description that was dropped for the show says. I try to do a quarterly conference call where everybody can get together. The first one that we did was just introduce yourself and talk to me about why you're kind of thinking about changing your participation. And some of the participants actually want to either change their involvement. Maybe they were a fighter, and because they had COVID and their health has changed, that they want to explore a different avenue in the SCA, which is totally admirable. Or they want to get more involved. They see the ways that they can get more involved virtually, and they want to do that. So we do have people that want to up their participation, not just scale it back or leave altogether. So it's for all flavors of people that want to change their trajectory.
Right. Which, I mean, those transitions are hard, up or down. Like, it's a harder conversation to have, switching from being a herald to a fighter, for instance, or a fighter to herald in this case, like, because once you're in a thing for even a year period of time, people see you as that, right? So in your case, even with your names, people are going to see you as Woo, regardless of what you are, because that's the name they have for you, right? That's the transitionary point. So it's hard to have that conversation because you're like, well, yeah, I want to be a herald, but I'm always going to be a fighter first because that's what people see you as, right?
Well, it kind of depends. Heraldry is a kind of a funky topic because you can be both. There have been many times I call it my Shaolin Herald picture because I'm in most of my armor except for my body armor, and I'm heralding a list at MGT.
Nice.
So
yeah, admittedly, it's possible. See, I have the opposite problem. People see me as a herald, not a fighter, and like, oh wait, you fight? Yes, in fact, I do know where it's in the sticks pointy. Yes, I understand. Thank you. But that's because most people have seen me doing. They haven't seen me fighting more, but you know.
Which is interesting because moving to North Shield, I have had very little opportunity to participate in the heraldic community for a lot of different reasons, most of them personal. And so mostly it's the fighting community that knows me in North Shield.
There you go.
And then from my time in this, I was a society herald for 5 years. I was the heraldic submissions intake herald called Ragged Staff. I did that for 5 years. And so most of my heraldry practice at this point is at a society level. I comment and help research mostly Chinese names and armory. So that's one of the things that I help with. But yeah, so your passions change and you can have more than one.
I shocker, right? Settle down, everybody. We're good. Yeah. But it is. I think that transition point is hard when you're looking at it because, again, and it's even if going from one thing to another, there's still a sunk cost. You're like, well, I'm going to lose time from this thing to do the new thing, and I've committed all this time, especially thinking as a fighter, I've put $1,000 into this kit that I'm now not going to use anymore because I'm going to go do this other thing more. Oh, that's a physical sunk cost versus an emotional sunk cost.
Yeah,
I can see that being it's a tough conversation.
I get emotional about money. So.
Yeah, admittedly, yeah, I'm very logical about money and emotional about other things, but that's my separation of the thing because I have to.
Yeah.
But I can see it. Now, moving is a good way you get a fresh start, essentially. It's a rewriting the character sheet sort of thing. Yes, some people still know you. Yes, you're still known society-wide, but your local group changes, your local environment changes, so that helps.
And I can't say enough about my local fighter practice. I'm in the barony of Nordskogen, which is Twin Cities, Minnesota, and they have been amazing. It is a very deep fighter practice, I will say that. I get beaten up a lot, but it's a good beat up. It's a good beat up. I learn a lot every time, and nobody's mean, so it's great. But I can't say enough about the Nordskogen fighter practice. If you're in North Shield, if you want it, or if we get back to, we're on hiatus right now until the end of February. North Shield is so, but if people get to a point where they want to travel again and they feel safe, and you get a chance to come to a Nordskogen fighter practice, please do. It's worth it. So.
Okay. Little shout out to Nordskogen there. I like it.
Yeah, they're awesome.
So So the idea of the sunk cost support group. So let's start the group some. So what does that look like? What's your sort of like quarterly meetings? Like what's the conversation look like there? What's your, I guess, attendance, or tell me more about that?
We're still finding our feet because it's still kind of new. So the first one was, like I said, was just an introduction. Tell me a little bit about yourself, where you're from, why you're thinking about changing your involvement or trajectory. And the next one that I'm going to try to have it this week because I wanted to get on the show and talk about it before we had the next one. The next one is going to be, one of the things that we talk about is taking back our power. And this was a big part of the original talk that I gave. Because most of the time when I talk to people, I need to preface all of this with, I am in no flavor of a licensed therapist. That's a big deal. I'm no flavor of a licensed therapist. I'm just a person that enjoys talking to people. And but having like-minded people to talk to is a form of working on yourself. So with that being said, one of the things that we talk most about is taking back our power, because I know a lot of people that are watching this probably feel like they can't say no, or they can't change their trajectory, or they can't get involved in another way. And taking back your power, I know that sounds like really amorphous and kind of woo-woo crap-ish, but it's important, because one of the things that I see talked about as a peer in discussions is, does this person know how to set good boundaries and when to do that and when to keep them? And then I watch people say things like, I'm not calling anybody out by name, this is just a general amorphous thing that I've seen as a peer, is, well, that person told me no this one time. Yeah, that person told you no because they can't travel right now, or they don't have the money to do this. And the number of times that I've seen people who, especially the scribes of the known world, give their talent freely so much. And then I see complaints about scribal quality, and I'm sitting here going, which of your bills do they pay?
Right.
Like, do you get no say in how this person budgets their time? Now, that being said, if someone has made a commitment to something and they don't keep it, that's a different animal altogether. But at the same time, if someone tells you they can't do something, I see a lot of people say, I can't do that right now. And then come to find out that people came and said, well, but you could do it this way, you could do it that way. It's always a conversation about how to get over those boundaries.
Right.
And never a, hey, you know what? That's awesome. We'll see you at the next thing. Or, yeah, in my head, I don't actually know in Asa. I think Asa has a spot in her time that she can do this scroll. We'll catch you for the next one, and sincerely mean that. And we don't actually, there's a lot of times that I run into that we don't actually mean when we say, oh yeah, that's okay. It's again, going back to that emotional manipulation from the early years of I'm telling you this to be like, no, that's okay. I understand. You can't do it.
Right.
So I'm not saying that happens all the time. I'm saying that it happens frequently enough that people want to talk about it, so that we need a support group for it. So
it does, and you're right. I think it happens with scribes a lot, because good God, I've tried it. I've done it. I've done a couple scrolls. I understand the pain they go through for the quality work, and my scrolling's crap. So, it's a weird thing to see when you have that conversation, and I'm glad to hear from you that the peers have those conversations, because it's funny. Like I've tried to set boundaries. I've found the things, but like I want to do more. Part of what I was looking for when I was looking for a peer, and I think you and I even had this conversation, was I need someone to make sure I can say no, because I don't feel like I can a lot of times, because like I want to do more, because I want to get recognized. I want to do the things. I also just enjoy doing the things, but like, and I know that conversation is going to happen if I say no, is I'm going to get that bad rap of, well, Kal just doesn't do anything. I'm like, shit, there's got to be a balance here somewhere, folks, Right.
There has to be. And I'm so glad you brought that up. There has to be a balance. Mm-hmm. And I feel like part of so there's a lot of virtual discussion going on right now about how there is no balance, and right. how people get perceived, especially among the fighting community, because if there's a stop, there's a stop.
Right.
With the service and arts community, those communities can kind of keep going and some of those artisans have done amazing things. Some of the virtual ANS that I've seen is absolutely fantastic. and allows a lot more people to participate. Whereas if we're on an in-person shutdown, the fighting community kind of has to just go, well, I guess we're going to do training videos now or something like that. But going back to the idea of a balance, and I'm gonna share something. Some of the feedback that I got when I was discussed for the peerage, and I'm not naming names. I'm not doing that, mostly because I don't know who said it, and it's not important. But one of the things that was brought up was when I get overwhelmed, I go off alone and I center myself, and then I come back and do the thing. And that was seen as something negative. And we often preach the idea that if you're about to have a meltdown, go take care of yourself and don't have a meltdown. If you're going to bleed, don't do it on anybody else. And it broke my heart that somebody would think that was a negative, especially since we tell our associates that all the time.
Right.
And then once my heart got done being broken, because again, I don't know who said it. Before anybody thinks that anybody in the peerage spoke out when they shouldn't have, that was on the notes. When we joined the peerage, a lot of kingdoms, when you join the peerage circle,
you see the thing, yeah.
So if you don't want people to know that stuff, don't put it in the notes where they can read it. So that being said, but yeah, after my heart got done being broken, I went, that is ridiculous. Mm-hmm. That the things that we tell our associates to do were seen as a negative. And I just, from that point on, I had kind of lost a lot of the luster of being a peer. And I say that with the idea that one of the things that we have to come to terms with while we are focusing on how we're going to change our involvement is peers are people. Mm. Everybody in the SCA, from, I'm going to pick on John the Bear Killer, from John the Bear Killer on down to I found the SCA virtually during pandemic and I'm making my first sheet tunic. We are all people. Mm. And I'm not even going to say this is a game. This is a hobby. This is what you spend your extra time on. And when I hear people say things like, well, they're not prioritizing this, that, or the other. They shouldn't have to. This is a volunteer organization. As much as I love Duke Tom, who's my dear friend, who's in the comments, and I can see this, he doesn't pay my bills. And he was the first person in my fighting career ever to look at me in seriousness and say, "Are you sick?" Yeah, this was way before COVID. I had some sort of thing, and he's like, I had eaten something, and he said, "Are you sick?" And I said, "Yeah," and he's like, "Why are you here?"
Yeah, you can stop. It's okay.
And I had never experienced that before at that point, almost 20 years of my fighting career. And that says a lot that people don't pay attention to the fact that we're all human. We all make mistakes. That being said, when someone makes an egregious mistake and they don't see action for it, which is a lot of the reason that a lot of people leave the SCA, something bad happens to them and the person that was responsible is not held accountable. I hear that a lot. That's a reason to leave. Why would you stay in an organization where you are told that your hurt is not important enough to even investigate?
Right.
There's no reason to stay for that. You have no obligation to be in proximity to your abuser for any reason, as I have recently had to take a stand and do something about.
That mentality is unfortunate too, and it's one of the things. Like I love the SCA, I love a lot of what we do, but I think our sanction banishment investigation process needs work, and they're working on it. And I have to give credit where credit's due to our BOD and to our like executive people, the Senechals of the world, whatever, because they do a thankless job, and I get it, right? And you and I can sit here and complain about, oh my God, and like you and I can sit here and complain about them, but we're not the ones actively doing it, so we can do that right now, right? But it's tough from this side when you see, and I've been involved in an investigation now. I was a witness, not the subject, but still. So I've sort of seen it now. I'm like, oh, I see the problem now of it's communication, right? Go back to any of that. It's all about communication of the things, whether good, bad, indifferent. We need to talk about those things more so we know what's going on with them, right? Be a little more open. And I think the SCA skews a lot more towards to the let's just hide it and cover it up than they do the talking about it for whatever reason. But it's
I
unfortunate.
think it has, and there was a conversation about this in the Ask the Pelicans Facebook group. It was tangential to this, and what a lot of people don't think about is the fact that the bulk of SCA participation is in the continental United States.
Right.
It is therefore shaped by our greater culture and history, which creates a lot of miscommunication with people who play in the SCA who were raised in other cultures, even European cultures.
Right.
There was a big blow up on my Facebook page the other day involving a peer whose first language is not English. I knew that, but a lot of the people commenting in the thread may have not have known that. And so when I say the bulk of SCA participation is shaped by continental U.S. culture and history, we're talking we cannot snap our fingers and make everything in the SCA okay, because we are talking about turning around over 200 years of culture and history. And that's the thing about being that's something about being a historical reactor at all, right, is you, the person inside Kal-bardr, inside Woo, inside any of the people in the comments, you know what a light bulb is. Your persona had no clue what a light bulb is, but you can't change the fact that you know what a light bulb is. You are always bringing your modern person and your modern sensibility and your modern self into that persona, whether you like it or not.
The important word is your modern bias.
Exactly.
Into it. Yeah.
And so the culture in the US is changing. Therefore, the culture in the Society for Creative Anachronism is changing. And it has to, because the foundation of US history is built on great injustice, and we have to address that. Right. But we have the opportunity in our little society to be ahead of that. And it would be a great thing to see us get ahead of that change. We
see very. I saw the conversation you're talking about with the non-US, non-English speaker, and I saw it. And what's funny is I read their intention, because I guess I give the benefit of the doubt when I try to read things, or at least I try to. But because I've had the same thing happen to me, even coming from, like, I was born in the South but raised around the world. My dad was military, so I came back to the South with a northern mentality. Living in New Jersey, it changes my mentality. So I came back with a little bit different. So I'm not natively from the South now, but I'm back in the South. And even that's a cultural difference and the language difference. I can say things that's my New Jersey brain that doesn't translate to Southern. And it baffled me for the longest time. We're seeing a lot of that now, as during COVID, as we've opened up, and we're getting these conversations across the nation now. And the idea of inter-kingdom anthropology, right? We're seeing a lot of that come up, where there's now just differences of opinions about how the kingdoms run, or how these conversations have to happen, what a peer looks like, what a peer associate relationship looks like. All these things are like just vastly different that we never knew about because we weren't talking to people from the West. You had pockets that knew it, but we didn't know it as a whole.
Well, and that speaks to the dynamic of the heraldic community, because heralds across the known world have been connected for a long time. And we are the keepers of custom and history. So our community sees it, but because people don't necessarily come to us and go, hey, how do they do protocol in the West Kingdom? We don't necessarily get to talk about it a lot. But you're right. Now, virtually, we're getting ready. We're seeing that crossover. I will say this: if you have the opportunity to attend another kingdom's collegium, court, anything virtual, and if you have the monetary means to visit another kingdom's, especially crown list, other kingdoms' crown lists, it's incredibly important to go visit those. You will get a huge insight into how a kingdom runs by going to their crown list. I went to Outland's crown list back in the fall. Can't
Jealous.
say. Well, for starters, they're amazing people. Those people know how to have a good time. I love them to death. Most kingdoms in the SCA know how to have a good time. But we're actually, some friends of mine, we're actually going to make T-shirts that says, your kingdom's weird. And on the back, it says, all kingdoms are weird. So we get everybody. But yeah, if you have the opportunity to go to another kingdom's crown list, you will really get some serious insight into how how people in other kingdoms do things. For example, you being in Meridies and me being from Meridies, we use the same oath of fealty for everybody. Everybody says the same oath of fealty unless they work something out with the crown ahead of time, which I do because I'm not in fealty at all. Right. I don't swear fealty for personal reasons. And in North Shield, because they are a child of Midrealm, they have different oaths that are focused on which peerage and then the populace, and that verbiage is kind of tailored to the to who's making it, which I find absolutely fascinating.
Right.
So you definitely expose yourself to other kingdoms' cultures. It will help you get a lot of understanding about why the SCA is the way that it is and why kingdoms are the way that they are. Especially when it comes to heavy fighting, because when I moved here, that was I'm walking, living interkingdom anthropology. It's amazing. When I moved here, I wear very light armor, even for Meridians. I wear almost society minimums. And I take.
Yes, we do that because it's fucking hot down here. Let's be honest.
Yeah, and people be like, "Why aren't you wearing any armor?" And I'm like, "Because it's hot where I'm from."
I don't want to put the armor on.
Right? Yeah, I don't want to do this. But then we're all at Penzic, and the North Shielders are sitting around going, "I'm dying," and I'm over here going, "I'm cool as a cucumber. Let's go."
Right. Yeah, when I went to Artemisia, they're like, "Oh my god, it's so humid here," and I was like, "My gills are drying out. What is going on?" Yeah, it's a thing.
Yeah. I chugged water for 6 weeks when I moved here because I'm used to breathing. My water intake is through the air, not
through
my
the air.
stomach.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I don't drink water ever. It's just that we breathe it in. It's fine. But yeah, it's funny. I also have to comment. You basically just called the heralds the hipsters of the SCA. We were doing IKA before it was cool. And
Yeah.
You're right. We are. That's accurate.
It's true.
It's just true. Yeah.
So yeah. So but to bring it back to the focus of sunk cost support, because and we kind of stray away from it because this is hard. Like these are hard conversations to have. But I do have a lot of people that whenever I do the talk or I have a call or something like that, I do have people come to me and say, "Thanks, I needed that," because they do need to have that release or exhale or however you want to think about it. That people need to have these conversations, and we don't have them enough. That as much as we want to say in service to the dream at the end of our emails or whatever else we're communicating with, at some point you've got to wake up. Right. You have to get up on Monday morning and go to work or take care of your kids if you're a stay-at-home parent or whatever it is that you do with your time that isn't the SCA. You have to do those things. And the sooner that we realize, the sooner that we come back to the idea that we are all people dealing with stuff. For example, I was the head chamberlain for a queen that did her reign solo because of a lot of personal things going on. And I'm not going to, speak about her business, but that's hard. And we have to, there was a lot of times that people had to people involved with the reign had to put their foot down and go, "No, this is not the way this is going to be," because real life comes first. Real life. If your viewers don't take anything else away from this call, and you can go tell anybody you want to that I said this. Woo said.
Woo told me.
Woo told me. Real life comes first. Go take care of your life.
Which generally, let me caution my viewers. Generally, that phrase "woo told me" will get you in trouble, but in this case, it's good. It's good advice.
That's not wrong.
I know. That's why I said what I said.
Also,
Woo
told me gets used for a lot of stuff that I never said. So like, there's this. It's not a joke anymore because at the end of the day we stopped doing it. But there was a silly thing involving Matthias Black. I'm going to pick on Matthias because I can. Matthias Blackett is a herald and a bard and a fighter in Meridies. And there was a thing at a Meridian Grand Tournament one night involving turfing Matthias and throwing glow sticks. And when we ultimately had to stop because we can't keep having jokes about causing people physical violence. That's
right.
mean. But there was this whole thing. I never had anything to do it, but people were like, "Go do this," and say Woo did it, and so the whole joke has been, well, Woo told me to, and Woo actually never told me to. but if I'm telling you a thing, tell people I said this, then that's a thing. So I'm telling you, your real life, as I gesture with my coffee cup that has nothing to do with the SCA.
None.
It just tickles me that you giggle every time I brandish it.
I can't help it.
Yeah. So your real life always comes first. And if you ever feel compelled to do a thing when you don't have the spoons monetarily, spiritually, emotionally, or physically to do them, guess what? You don't have to do it.
Right.
So
I want to bring up a couple comments of the thing, and then I want to cycle back to the idea of serving the dream. First of all, I appreciate all the people who are like, it's +1 degrees here, or it's balmy 9 degrees where I am. I'm like, I hate all of you right now. Like, I'm wearing a hoodie because it's cold in my office, but I'm also sweating my ass off at the moment. Thank you.
And I can pick on Duke Tom because I fought for him in Crown. That man would go sit in a snowbank if he is basically a 2-legged Newfoundland dog, and he really enjoys cold temperatures, and we argue about it. So.
I used to enjoy the cold a lot more when I was a much heavier person. Now that I've lost a bunch of weight, like, I get cold now. So you'll never see me without my hoodie on. Like, it's 85 degrees here, and I'm like, I probably should put a hoodie on. I'm a little chilly. Like, what the fuck? It's stupid. I hate it. It's the thing I hate about weight loss. My knees and back love it, but my extremities are not happy. So anyways, also I thought this was funny. Mom said that it was okay. So apparently your mom's Woo now.
Bruna, it's true. Yeah, but I'm not your mom.
Your mom, you are Mama Woo now. That's your new name.
No, I knew I would be a bad mom, and guess what I was? So I didn't birth one, I raised one. So.
Right. So I want to talk about the service to dream thing. So you mentioned about traveling to other kingdoms. I think that to me is something that when people, and this is my bit of advice, when you start questioning your involvement in the SCA, right? I realized I was getting pissed off at the SCA early pandemic and sort of that time frame, because I've got some toxic shit around me in Meridias. Anybody's ever been Meridias? And I'm sure there's other kingdoms too. And Woo, you know about this. There's some toxic bits of Meridias, and specifically in my local group, I had some issues. I played when I was much younger and came back to it, and a lot of that old bullshit came back with me. You don't outgrow your bullshit, unfortunately. Even people remember, people have long memories. The SCA has a long memory.
It has a long selective memory.
That's true. That's very true. But I realized that I was like, I'm not enjoying this anymore, right? I'm starting to not like this. And then I traveled. I started going elsewhere. I started going out of kingdom and went, oh, here's my problem. I was a very large fish in a very small bowl. I was only seeing this much of the SCA. I wasn't seeing the SCA as a whole, right? And I was like, I get it now. I see what I'm missing. So like I said, I traveled to Artemisia. I hate to keep bringing that up, but it was such an eye-opening experience when I hit Artemisian soil and saw the difference. Even though I got to see a bit behind the curtain too. Like, I've been a herald. Like, as a herald, you see a lot of the behind the curtains of being crowned, right? I've never been crowned, but I've seen it.
Yeah.
But I was in Artemisia hanging out with the crown, and so I was seeing their normal lives. Like, His Majesty Sean talks about he's just another dude with alpaca shit on his boots. Like, he is. They're just people too, right? Yeah. But getting to see that and getting to see their event, and it really reawakened the dream for me. And reawakening a dream sounds funny, but it's true. I realized that the bullshit I put up with locally, the bullshit I put up with that's the politics of the SCA, is just part of it. And I can go, whatever. And then go have fun and enjoy the fun aspects of it. And if I do that, the other work stuff is not as bad anymore. It becomes way less of a big deal.
Well, and that's another thing that I see as far as you see this a lot, especially on the Ask the Pels group on Facebook. People say things like, well, if you're not doing your service for fun, there is nothing fun. There's nothing fun about stocking porta-johns.
Right.
There's nothing fun.
It's got to get done, but nobody really enjoys it.
Yeah. And a long time ago, I went to a thing at Penzic, and it was a class called Where to Find Your Fun Once It's Been Lost, which factored heavily into my sunk cost sport content. And the pelican teaching that, and I can't remember her name. She was an Ethel Martian pelican, and I can see her face, and she does siege weapon marshalling. I can see her face, because she checked me for concussion when I got hit flat at 30 yards to my left cheek with a ballista bolt at a Penzic one time. That's fun.
Yeah.
There's video on YouTube where it hurt. But she said that someone had imparted this bit of wisdom to her. The SCA doesn't love you. The people in it do.
Right.
And while that is good advice, it still kind of factors into that whole emotionally manipulative idea that we talk to people about whenever they are trying to have these conversations of what am I going to continue to do. And I'm gonna. This is a moment of vulnerability for me. Fighter practice fighter practice is still fun. Fighting is still fun for me. I have gotten exponentially better since I've lived here, which has been fantastic. It's nice to win fights, and win fights against people that are a lot better than me. I mean, I don't beat them all the time, but I can. I get a win every once in a while, which is fun. But not a whole lot of aspects of the SCA are fun for me anymore. And listening to people with these issues is not fun for me, but it is the way that my service has evolved since I've become a peer. Because I'm no longer looking at things like, have I checked all the boxes? I know that sounds bad and all the peers are going to come for me. I'm not talking about checking all the boxes. I wasn't looking at it in terms of checking the boxes. I'm talking about checking the boxes in terms of the offices I was fulfilling, right, and the roles I was fulfilling. At one point, I was a herald at the local, kingdom, and society levels at the same time. I'm talking about fulfilling my obligations.
Right.
What I can do now, the way that my service has morphed into being support for people that want to leave, is this is what I find fulfilling. Going back to those conversations a decade ago, or over a decade ago at this point, because I wasn't having fulfilling conversations myself.
Right.
And the whole idea that you can't pour from an empty cup. My cup is pretty full right now. And this is the way that I share that energy with people. And it's helping this one of my TikTokers. If you want to follow me on TikTok, I'm BCE Luck Dragon. I had to change it because it said SCA Luck Dragon, and then I remembered the SCA social media policy, and it sounded like I was speaking for the whole SCA, and I don't. So I changed it to BCE Luck Dragon because before the Common Era. But yeah, as I was explaining in one of my TikTok videos, because they admonished me to take care of myself during this time. This is my self-care. Being there for people that need to have these conversations. And when I don't have the spoons to have the conversations, I tell people, I can't do that today. Are you available on Thursday at whatever time? And people are always receptive to that, which is awesome, because these are people that I know I can have the conversation with of they've had their boundaries stretched beyond their means, and they want to talk about that. And I can give them that validation of, no, your boundaries are valid. So there've been some really productive conversations with people. And I have talked to some people who have said, thank you. I sold all my gear and now I do 501st, or I do anime conventions, or I go play disc golf, or it's whatever people want to do. One of the things that people really struggle with is all my friends are in the SCA. I can't leave. All my friends are here. COVID is the perfect opportunity to cultivate non-SCA experiences with your SCA friends. Mm-hmm. I hadn't played D&D in years and years and years and years, and I thought everything after second edition was trash. But tells you how
you're not wrong per se, but that's a different show.
Yeah, different show. But I found a manual and I dusted off my dice and I learned 5e because a good friend of mine wanted to play that lives he's a Pelican in Ethelmark. Hi, Kameshma, if you're watching. And he wanted to play. And so I learned 5e, even though I felt dirty the entire time. And because 5e.
I like how that's what makes you feel dirty. Let me just anyways, continue. Go ahead.
And
my point made. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm really trying to get you to spit coffee on the air. That's the thing. So please go cultivate non-SCA experiences with your SCA friends. Have movie nights in your pods. Go play disc golf. If you feel comfortable going out, go get coffee. Play cards, like play Magic. I don't care what you do.
Right.
But this is the best time to create those connections so that if you do decide to leave and not play anymore, you have those things to talk about. And if you start talking to these people outside of the SCA and you don't have anything in common except the SCA, and you wake up and go, even like you. It's you can change those associations at any time. You don't have that's what sunk cost support is about. Just because you've been friends with someone for 30 years and you find out that they hang Confederate flags all over their bedroom because they're a crazy racist. Sorry, crazy is ableist. Because they're a ridiculous racist.
There
and
you
you
go.
find that out, you don't have to be friends with them anymore. Just because you're friends with them for 30 years.
Yeah, and it can suck. It can suck, and you can be sad about the loss of a thing and the memory of that 30 years, because you had 30 good years with that person or that job or that hobby, and you're like, oh, that was a good memory. I look back on, so I played Solar for a couple of years, and it's where I met Crystal or Kisa, and I got banned from Solar, and it sucks. I want to go play. I love LARPing, and I love the SCA, but it's not LARPing. I mean, okay, it is LARPing, but it's not the same. It's a different mentality. It's not the same. I miss parts of that, and I look back and go, oh, those are really good memories, and I appreciate that. And then I move on with my life,
Yeah, and that's the whole point of the support group. That's the entire point of what we're doing, is to have like-minded people to sit with while you decide to go through these motions and then grieve whatever you need to grieve. I met my now ex-husband at my second fighter practice, and we were together for 17 years. A lot of my SCA experience is wrapped up with this person. And you are allowed to grieve those good times that you had. Mm-hmm. I'm fairly certain that I am the first guest that you've had that's been banished from a kingdom that they don't live in. And
yeah, no, I think you win that one. Yeah, good job.
Yep, that's me. It was just a 6 month. My banishment's over. I'm allowed to travel freely across the SCA now, according to the last email I got about it. That may change. Because it did during that entire. You're talking about the investigation process earlier. Right. I've been the one investigated. So
right. I mean, I may have. It's possible I've been investigated. Nobody ever told me I was. So
they have to tell you if you're being investigated.
Oh, neat. Okay, then I'm good. Excellent.
Yeah. they have to tell you.
Good to know.
Yeah. Or they're supposed to.
They're supposed to. Yeah, let's say they're supposed to.
Yeah. In the case of, I don't want to get off into the weeds about what happened to me, but in the case of my investigation, my witness was never questioned, and they're supposed to question your witnesses. So moving rapidly past that, because it's still kind of traumatic. Going back to being able to grieve relationships that you are reevaluating, I'm pretty much no longer friend there with a few rare exceptions. I'm not friends with anybody that was in Clan Dragonshade anymore. And in fact, there's a couple of them that those relationships are hostile to the detriment of my physical safety. One of them lives in Milwaukee, so that's fun. And but you're allowed to have those feelings. And I listen to people go, well, I'm just being stupid, or I'm just being oversensitive, or you're not. You're just not. While I will say till I'm dead that feelings are not facts. Feelings are just not facts. They're still valid.
Right.
You just can't act out of that being your only impetus, which is the whole economic philosophy behind sunk cost support. If your investment, time, money, physicality, anything, your intellectual property, a lot of intellectual property goes into the running of the SCA, and people don't realize it.
Mm-hmm.
Things like the system that the Heralds use for commentary, it's called Oscar. That is somebody's intellectual property. Your heraldic submissions are your intellectual property. And a lot of that gets used for free out of the goodness of people's hearts in the SCA.
Right.
People don't think about that.
Yep. Every spreadsheet, every Google form, every event page, it's all somebody's work that they did. Right.
Somebody has a great idea for an event.
Mm.
That goes back to seeing the people behind who does the running of the SCA.
Right.
The sooner that we actually come to the idea that everybody doing this is participating in a shared hobby, I think the lot better off that we'll be.
Right.
But yeah, so if any of this is ringing for you, please come join us in the support group on Facebook. We'd love to have you. There's only about 30 members right now besides myself. It's very low. I always get this wrong. Signal to noise. We there's few posts, but they're usually pretty good.
Right.
Please come chat. And if you don't want to talk in a public forum, I'm actually trying to figure out a way to submit to have like anonymous chat rooms for people to talk to each other, because this is heavy, and I'm still working it out. And then I got an idea earlier this week for if one of the things I noticed when I was researching this topic was there really isn't a support group for people who have already left the SCA.
Right.
And
they'd be hard to reach potentially too. That's the other problem. Yeah.
No, it wouldn't. They're in all the SCA groups. You see the posts all the time talking about
you're right.
left 30 years ago. Yeah. And it's because there's a friend of mine calls them the ghosts of the SCA. This is why I quit 30 years ago. You're still here in the group talking. So to give those people a space for them to talk in a place that's supportive for them, because their reasons for leaving were valid. Their reasons for still being hurt 30 years later are valid. So that's a thing. That's another thing that I'm working on. But yeah, we're gonna have another conference call this week. Hopefully sometime. I'm trying to do them on different days of the week, because not everybody is going to be available on Sunday, not on the third Sunday of the quarter month at 7:00.
Right.
I want people to come and go as they feel comfortable. And if we get more engagement, then I'll start having them more often. And they're usually over Facebook chat room. So if you have Facebook Messenger, you don't have to have all of Facebook, but if you have Facebook Messenger, we'll get you in there somehow. So.
So there was a question. So the group name is Sunk Cost Support. I tried finding it and couldn't find it. Can you get me a link and then I'll share it out on the Kal-bardr Corner page?
I will absolutely do that.
I tried searching. I was going to grab a link and then it wouldn't pop up. So it may just be me trying to do it while I'm trying to be live. So.
There's a dash in sunk cost, but I'm going to. That's a typo on my part, because when I was doing my original research, my brain just went, there's a hyphen in that, and it was on all
word, clearly,
but there's actually not a hyphen in the economic philosophy. So I'm going to go change that, and then I will drop you the link so that people can find it easier.
Perfect.
And then if you go to my Facebook page, my name is Emily, the traditional spelling with a Y, feathers like bird feathers. There's a pinned post on my page with a link tree, and on that link tree is a link to the group. So
it looks like I think Moon hooked us up. Hold on, I'll get it. There we go. Thank you for that, Moon. I will press that out.
Thank you.
This may not share out to YouTube, so if you're watching this on YouTube, go over to the Facebook stream and catch the link there. But I'll throw up on the screen. That's if you want to copy down the numbers real quick. There you go. Thank you for that.
Find me on TikTok, BCE Luck Dragon with underscores.
Yep. Hold on,
I do some.
I got you. Bam.
Nope, underscore between luck and dragon.
Damn it! I knew it. I was like, it's like that didn't look right. Hold on, I'll fix it. Do that.
It's all right.
Like, I follow you, so I knew there's at least one underscore on there. So.
I have another TikTok that is for my everything but the SCA, and it's just a Luck Dragon. But I don't talk about anything SCA related on that channel. So if you're looking for the sunk cost support, find me on the SCA one.
Admit it. So I follow both of yours, and I enjoy your Appalachian cryptid history stuff. And yeah, thank you, Appalachia. I play Fallout, and I hate when they do it, and I still fuck it up. So
especially since Fallout is set in West Virginia, where it is absolutely Appalachia. There is a distinction between Northern and Southern Appalachia. Northern Appalachia does call it Appalachia, but we can tell the difference when somebody from outside says Appalachia and somebody from Northern Appalachia says Appalachia, and we will call you on it. So
fair enough. I've been called out. It
boils down to this, and people are like, "Why do you make such a big deal?" I'm just gonna tangent for just a second. Why do you make such a big deal out of it? There is, and this, to tangent off of things, not to make the struggle of historically marginalized people about me, But this was where I realized that I had more in common with people of color, indigenous people, than my Midwest white counterparts, was when I had people, and a grown adult who was born and lived her whole life in this place. I had people correct me on the name of where I live and where I was born. And that is unacceptable for anybody of any color. You don't correct people about the pronunciations of where they're from. It's disrespectful, and it shows that you are not safe. You're just not safe. And that was a major eureka moment for me. But yeah, so that my Appalachian content is on my other, and I have very little of it at this point. I will admit that I have very little of it. But with the rise of podcasts like Old Gods of Appalachia, it has become necessary for people of the region with lived experience to speak, because people from outside the region are making determinations and spreading misinformation that is only feeding into hurtful stereotypes. And if we don't do something about it now, we'll never get it back in the bottle. So,
and that's frankly just a take that statement and put it on any culture ever. Just pop that around. I think that's a good statement. Yeah. Yeah. And Texas is not part of it. We've discussed that. We've seen that too.
I don't know who needs to read this, but Texas is not part of Appalachia.
I laughed so hard that day when you posted that. Anyway, I laughed so hard.
There is the concept of Greater Appalachia, because North Texas was settled by people from Appalachia, and there are some cultural similarities, but there is a whole ass river and a couple of plains in between Texas and these mountains.
A whole ass river.
It's a whole ass river.
Oh God. On that note, coming up next on Kal-bardr's Corner, I'm just gonna transition to that. There we go. All right, so next Sunday we'll be back with Road to Retention. We were interviewing her ladyship is Gareth. Root will be back on there for that. And not only do we have the Road to Retention interview, we'll be premiering the new show, A Look Inside Youth Activities. So that'll be a lot of Gareth's retention stuff will be related to youth and youth activities and sort of the retention around converting youth. So that's going to be a good show. And then that series is going to be really amazing. She has, I think, already 8 episodes lined up. It's going to be a sort of a limited run thing, but we're looking at some other look inside topics as well. So looking forward to that. Awesome. And then the next Coffee with Cal will be at a weird time. Sorry for the weird scheduling changes, but one of my guests is from Australia. So turns out you can't do that at normal 11 o'clock time because it would be like 3 o'clock his morning. So, but we're discussing the implied power of peerage. Speaking of TikTok, we're joined by Books and Swords, Sarah Lane, and Her Excellency Fiametta, who is Fia, something like that on thing. I'll have their TikTok handles for you on that episode. So looking forward to having both of them on. They put some amazing stuff up on their TikToks about this topic, and I was like, I want to talk to you about this, and because there's so much more than we need to have a conversation about than you can get the 3-minute TikTok. So looking forward to having both of them on. As always, if you want to support KK Productions, the Kal-bardr's Corner, everything we do here, look us up on Patreon and join the Grand Wall of Patrons. I just enjoy it. I need a good reverb. I need a reverb button for that thing. I need it. I need to make that happen.
Add the flare.
Look me up on Redbubble, search KK Productions. You can also check me out on TikTok at Kal-bardr, or check out Woo BCE Luck Dragon. I think that's all I got. So,
thank you so much for having me, Cal. This has been fun. It was nice to see you. It's always nice to talk
to you. Of course, yeah. I've missed talking to you. I miss getting to see your face. And you and I had some good conversations. Early pandemic. So I'm glad to catch up again. Before we go, I always like to end with a bit of a wrap up. So if you had to wrap up the topic in like a sentence or less, what's your wrap up?
Your feelings are valid. Other people have the same issues you do. You're not alone. And come talk to us. We'll help you out.
There you go. Also, apparently Patrona lives on that river, so she lives on that whole ass river.
Yeah, Patrona knows the whole ass river. So.
Whole ass river. So, all right, folks, that is an empty cup, and this has been a great show. Woo, I appreciate you. I appreciate everybody out there watching. But for now, this has been Cal and Woo in Kal-bardr's Corner. Have a good day, everybody.
Bye, everybody.